Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first virtual edition of Zach on Sports. I am your host, Zach Gershman. Sports fans need content, and we are here to give it to you. With me today is ESPN and Westwood One's own Olivia Harlan Dekker. Welcome, Olivia.
Thank you, Zach. Glad to be on with you.
Thank you for joining us. Now, I have to ask you, this pandemic is crazy. What is a family that is so connected to sports and sports media doing during a time like this?
That's a great question because our whole world seemed to just stop in 1 week. I was actually home in Kansas City for my sister's birthday when all of this kind of came to a head. And my dad was getting ready for the college basketball tournament and got the call that that was no longer happening. I had some spring football games on my schedule with ESPN that I found out were no longer happening. And then my husband, who was playing basketball in Russia, got the call that he got to come home and that Russia was literally closing their borders.
What was that like for you?
Oh, it was wild. I mean, selfishly, I was so excited that my husband would get to come home because he'd have another couple months left playing overseas, and I was ultimately going to go join him. But then as it sunk in more and more, everyone so missed the college basketball tournament. And then, I love every work event I have. Every date on the calendar is a good one. So I have really missed just being busy with game assignments and game work.
No, I 100% understand that. Being a football reporter for ESPN and Westwood One, is there any scenario that we will have a 2020 football season, whether college or NFL?
I think NFL is fully planning to be on schedule and to figure it out. I know the Miami Dolphins today came out with a report saying that they have a contingency plan to get about 15,000 fans a game in Hard Rock Stadium, a stadium that seats 65,000. So you're talking about really limiting things, having everyone who works in the stadium wear a mask, have hand sanitizer everywhere, obviously sectioning off when people enter and leave the stadium, having digital pickup orders at concession stands so there's no lines. I'm just glad that someone's come out with something so that now the ball's rolling and people can come up with that. For college football, I know that a lot of head coaches feel like they need at least 6 weeks to get their players conditioned just to be safe to play on that Labor Day weekend, because otherwise it really is a huge risk for those soft tissue injuries that come up just when conditioning is not in place. But 6 weeks is certainly not enough time for new head coaches, new coordinators to develop their scheme, implement and install scheme, establish a depth chart, and just for head coaches to create a culture. I feel so sorry for first-year head coaches or guys who are moving to a new program who are now Zooming their players, unable to even meet them in person yet.
It's wild.
So to answer your question, I think if we're going to have a normal Labor Day weekend start of college football season, they have to get players together to practice and start conditioning around mid-July. That gives you about the 6-week mark. So I think we'll get a lot of answers in June. I hope. I know everyone wants these answers, me especially. For me, a bunch of my friends keep asking, so do you have a job? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe not.
No, I understand that. I work with production for Penn State Athletics, so I completely understand that. But as we were talking about before we started recording this, your dad, and to me, obviously I'm young, but your dad is one of the best announcers in the game. Both of you guys made history together, being the first father-daughter duo to broadcast a game at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, no less. Yeah. What was that experience like for you, and why was it so special to your family?
Oh my gosh. Well, we didn't know it was going to be a Packer game for a while. It was, I do work with Westwood One, and they had never, my dad and I hadn't crossed over on a game yet, just kind of by chance. And then our executive producer, Howard Deneroff, said, we're completely missing the boat here. You guys have got to do a game together. And we, made history as the first father-daughter duo to do a national NFL broadcast. And so that part for me was very cool personally and in my career. But then the fact that it happened to be scheduled on this open date in October at Lambeau Field, and I hardly miss a Packer game anyways. We are huge Packer fans. Obviously, you turn off the bias when you're working the game, but it could have been anywhere. Mm-hmm. So that was such an added element, and my whole family was there and just meant the world. So I respect my dad so much. I care about his opinion almost above anyone else's about my work. And to do a game with him and have that immediate reaction, and just the added element of, okay, back up to you guys. Let's send it down to the field to Olivia Dekker. That part was so unique and odd. We weren't even sure. About an hour before the game, we still weren't sure if I was going to say, back up to you, Dad. We ended up not, because we thought that was lame, but we weren't sure.
That would have been so cool. I think that would have been so cool. So your dad has given you tons of advice. You said already you value his opinion when it comes to work more than anybody. What was the best piece of advice your father has given you? And if you could return the favor, what advice would you give your dad?
That's really good. That's a great question. He's so, it's kind of a common thought, and I think there's a book on it. I think that's where he got this, but 10,000 hours, the rule of 10,000 hours doing anything is what it takes to be a master at something. So he's such a firm believer in reps and constant work, constant self-critique. He's still 60 in about a month, and he's still at 60 years old in the peak of his career, where he just won National Sportscaster of the Year for the second time. He still keeps a super detailed journal of critiquing every game he does. I don't know how he has the time to do it, because he does about 3 games a week with college football, NBA, and NFL, 2 games NFL every weekend when they all overlap. And he still listens back to each and every game. During the college football season, I usually just have my Saturday ESPN game, and then every once in a while a Sunday or Monday Westwood One NFL game. But I still don't feel like I have the time to go back and listen to all my games, because you're doing your expense report, you're booking your travel, you're just unpacking and repacking and prepping for your next game. It feels like there's no time. So he makes the time and makes that such a priority to critique his own work, which I find extremely admirable.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And as we've already talked about, I just finished my first semester at Penn State, and thankfully I was there for a year where both our football team and basketball team were ranked in the top 10 at one point. That exactly that.
I had a bunch of those games. I had
exactly. You had the chance to cover a bunch of Penn State games, but being from Philadelphia, one of the ones that really stood out to me was when number 21 Penn State played Iowa, number 23 at the Palestra. So growing up in Philadelphia, I obviously understand the significance of what the Palestra means to the history of college basketball. But what was that experience like for you?
You know, Zach, I kind of dug in the history books and I kind of relearned it. I had always known about it, as this kind of hallowed ground in the basketball world. But once I really dug into it, I did all of this before even stepping foot, I was thrilled to cover that game. That was so exciting, especially with Fran McCaffrey's roots to Philadelphia. And it was like it was like a movie script, the way it all happened. And then, of course, it was an amazing game. So I really just grew such an appreciation for that. And I got to that game super early, way earlier than I normally do, because I wanted to just walk around and I wanted to get a feel of the place. I went in both locker rooms, and it literally looks like from Hoosiers. It's like a tiny 10 by 10 room. You can't figure out how a basketball team's going to fit in there. And then they do, no air conditioning. And it was
hot.
Super hot day.
It was so hot.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't believe how hot it was. It was hot and humid in that room. So, one of my career highlights was doing that game, just for the significance that the Palestra has in basketball history.
No, when you had your interview with Coach Chambers, you see he took off his jacket a little bit. You just see the sweat dripping down.
Right.
It was an awesome game to be at, and then to rewatch again, it's just incredible. But now we know Olivia Dekker, the sports broadcaster. Now we're going to have a new segment called Beyond the Mic, where we get to know Olivia Dekker, the person. So you ready for it?
I'm ready. Lay it on me.
In addition to being an accomplished sports broadcaster, fashion and style has always been very important to you. Talk a little bit about that and why you enjoy fashion so much. And when you broadcasted NBA games for the Hawks for a little bit, doing their sideline reporting, did you ever see an athlete walk through the tunnel just being like, what is going through his mind?
Yeah, NBA players have a lot of fun with their style, which I love. It's such a part of the game. And now I feel like NFL players are doing the same and showing up in all types of stuff, which is fun. It's like an appetizer to a great meal. It's like, okay, this is what you're showing up in. This is the mindset you're in. I kind of like it. I know my husband, he really likes to dress up before games because he feels like it's like a business trip. And he's like, I like treating it like a business trip and a business day. So I think there's some of that to it. For me, I just, on TV, I really like to dress very structured, kind of not distracting. You know, you don't want what you're wearing to be distracting, but in my personal life, then I do have more fun with clothes. But I started a separate Instagram account just for that because I think I have a really good nose for a bargain. And I, like, in my friend groups, I was always the person to text them, hey, I found a $5 shirt on Amazon you guys are going to love. And they were like, you've got to share this with more people. So I created a separate Instagram that has nothing to do with sports. So I keep my two personas separate. And I love sharing little tips and tricks I come up with because I used to do pageants. So I have this pageant background, and I just feel like I kind of have things I can share with people. So I do.
Exactly. And you, on top of the pageants, I'm sure one of your specialties is singing. You had the opportunity to sing at the national anthem at a Wisconsin basketball game and then go right away to start reporting. What was that day like? And is there a backstory to the national anthem?
Oh, that's a great question. I had sung the national anthem when I was in high school. I was a cheerleader at our high school, and I sang the national anthem before one of our varsity men's basketball games, which I thought that was as big as it could get. Cause you know, when you're in high school, it just feels so huge.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a really great basketball team and always had huge crowds, and it was very fun. So I thought, wow, I sang the anthem and then went right into cheerleading at the game. That's wild. And then now I've upped the ante and sang at, I think there were 17,000 people at the Kohl Center that night for Illinois at Wisconsin men's basketball game. So it's a state rivalry. Mm-hmm. Illinois upset Wisconsin and won by 1. It was an incredible game. And all day my palms were super sweaty because I knew I had to sing the anthem. And I had practiced a good bit, but there is no feeling like when you get that mic, you could hear a pin drop and you sing that first note. And I'll be honest, it took me like a couple words to kind of settle down because it's such a bizarre out of body feeling to hear yourself singing in a big, cavernous, empty arena. I guess not empty with all those people, but with no one else making a sound. So I am so glad I did it. I was so nervous. It's a total bucket list item. Got to cross that one off. But yeah, I think the coolest part for me professionally is that right after singing the anthem, I truly handed back the PA mic and went back over to my cameraman, picked up my Big Ten microphone, and did my opening hit per usual about the game. So it was an amazing night. Whole friends and family were there, and that was certainly a highlight of this past year.
Which was more nerve-wracking, reporting the game or singing the national anthem?
Singing the anthem. Oh my gosh, reporting the game. That's what I do. You know, I live for that. It's like getting up and brushing your teeth. It feels so natural to me, but singing the anthem, there's nothing natural about that.
Well, I'm glad you said that because if that was not your answer, I would have questions as well. But we're going to go into a quick little rapid fire this or that style. So here we go. You're a Georgia grad, but you work for the Big Ten. SEC football or Big Ten basketball?
Oh, come on.
Welcome to Zach on Sports.
Yeah, gosh, that's a tough one. Well, I mean, I think there's no comparison because Big Ten this year, just statistically, was the best basketball conference. And every year in football, SEC reigns supreme. And to be fair, I only cover men's basketball on Big Ten Network. I don't cover football. So
that's why I had to throw it out like that.
Let's go with both. I mean, come on.
All right. I'll you're the guest. I'll let you do that. Okay. Favorite Kevin Harlan call, 2 games at once or the cat running on the field?
Cat running on the field or streaker running on the field. YouTube that one. That's a good one. I have. Olivia Dekker is throwing a fashion party. Which is the first designer that you invite? Like I mentioned, I'm pretty cheap. So yeah. I think the first designer I would invite would be whoever works at Zara or H&M. I'm cheap. I'm easy. I definitely wouldn't buy like designer duds from. So
no Gucci style stuff. That stuff's too flashy.
I like Gucci though. Okay.
And what is one celebrity, or who is one celebrity that you haven't had the chance to interview yet, but you would love to? Either sports, fashion,
Hmm.
celebrity-wise, whoever it may be.
Gosh, it depends on the week. I think you want whoever's really relevant that week. I just sticking to sports, I guess. Anytime you can kind of cross off a big bucket list thing, like as I'm watching The Last Dance right now, I'm like, wouldn't it have been so cool to have interviewed Michael Jordan or to
Hmm.
have had some interaction? So I guess for me now, I've interviewed LeBron James, so I think that's the most important person in basketball right now. I guess Tom Brady. I would love to interview Tom
Tom
Brady.
Brady
I
would be
feel
a
like
cool one.
that's as kind of relevant and big as it gets, and I think he's the best in his position.
That's awesome. Speaking of best in the position, you're working on your way to be the best in your position, and I highly respect that. Uh, as someone who wants to follow your footsteps, it's great to see. So thank you for joining the show. Really appreciate it. And for everyone else, I'll see you guys next time on Zach on Sports.
Thank you so much, Zach.